Welcome back to Mimi's Organic Eats. Today we're making sourdough pumpkin spice cupcakes with maple cream cheese frosting. So if you guys have a can of pumpkin and you have some sourdough discard lying around, you can make these delicious fall-inspired cupcakes. These sourdough pumpkin spice cupcakes with maple cream cheese frosting are moist and fluffy. They have the perfect amount of cozy spice and a little bit of tang from that cream cheese frosting. So let's turn what would have been waste into the perfect Thanksgiving cupcake. Let me show you guys how to make them. So now we're going to mix up our dry ingredients. So I have 300 grams of all-purpose flour in this mixing bowl here. So I'm using all-purpose flour and not cake flour in these pumpkin spice cupcakes today, and this is why. Because we're using pumpkin, which is going to add a lot of moisture, I like using all-purpose flour because it has a higher protein content than cake flour. This is going to make sure that it has a little bit more structure and the cupcake won't fall apart. I always use all-purpose flour whenever baking with vegetables like carrots, zucchini, pumpkin, that sort of thing. Now we're going to add our spices. So I'm using cinnamon, ginger, and cloves today. But if you guys want to use a pumpkin spice in place of all three of these spices, you can totally do that. Just make sure you're replacing the full amount of each spice with the pumpkin pie spice mix. So we're doing 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Next we're going to do 1 teaspoon of ginger. And then half a teaspoon of cloves. Next we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And then 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Now we're just going to whisk this together. Now we're going to set this aside as we mix up the cupcake batter. So first we're going to add in 226 grams of salted butter. And you want to make sure that your butter is soft. Next we're going to add in 400 grams of light brown sugar. Now we're going to mix this on low until combined and there's no butter chunks. Next, we're going to add in our wet ingredients. So first, we have 2 large egg yolks. So we're going to have to separate the yolk from the whites. And I like to separate the whites right into a glass Tupperware so then I can store them in the fridge and use them later. Next, we're going to add in 425 grams of pumpkin puree, which is a whole can. So you don't have to worry about having leftover pumpkin with this recipe. And then last, we're going to add in 113 grams of sourdough discard. Now we're going to mix this on low until combined and there's no visible traces of sourdough discard. Now we're going to add in our flour mixture. And now if you guys are doing this with a hand mixer, you probably want to add the flour in a little bit at a time, but with the stand mixer, it's fine if you want to add it in all at once. Now we're just going to mix on low until combined into a smooth pumpkin cake batter. And whenever making cake batter, you always want to make sure that you scrape down the sides of the bowl partway through mixing. This is going to ensure you get all the little bits of flour and butter and everything is completely combined and you have a uniform batter. So now we're going to line 2 cupcake pans with liners. This recipe is going to make 24 cupcakes. So I'm using a cupcake scoop here, but you guys can use just a large spoon as well. We're going to fill the cupcake liners to 3/4 full. Now we're going to bake these at 375 degrees for about 20 minutes. So once our cupcakes have cooled, now it's time to make the maple cream cheese frosting. So I have 226 grams of softened butter in my stand mixer. Next, we're going to add in 113 grams of cream cheese. Next, we're going to add in 88 grams of maple syrup. And then last, we're going to sift 566 grams of powdered sugar right into the mixing bowl. You guys always want to make sure you're sifting your powdered sugar for frosting. This is going to ensure that it's smooth and creamy and there's no clumps. Now we're gonna mix this starting on low to avoid splattering because there is a lot of things in this mixing bowl. Then you're gonna gradually increase the speed. Then you wanna be at full speed. We wanna whip for about 2 to 3 minutes. Then we wanna make sure we're scraping down the sides of the bowl to ensure we get everything mixed in properly. Then continue to mix again until you have a smooth and creamy frosting. So I'm using a Teco tip number 8 through 7 today to frost these pumpkin spice cupcakes. But you guys can use any kind of tip you want. And if you don't have a piping bag and tip, you can just frost these with a butter knife too. That's totally okay. If you are going to go the butter knife method and frost without using the piping bag, you probably don't need as much frosting, so you could probably hack the recipe. And you guys know my favorite tool for filling a piping bag is a milkshake cup. It works so good. If you guys don't have a milkshake cup, you could use a large beer glass or even a vase. So you guys always want to make sure that your cupcakes are cooled completely before frosting. This is going to ensure that the frosting is nice and tall and it doesn't start melting into a hot cupcake. So before we start frosting our cupcakes, we want to mix up the topping. And this is just 1 tablespoon of cane sugar, and I'm just going to add a little pinch of cinnamon in here and mix it up. This is just going to create a little cinnamon and sugar topping that gives a little bit of texture. It's so delicious. This is what we served on top of my snickerdoodle cupcakes at my bakery, and everybody loved it. We want to have this ready before frosting the cupcakes because we want it to stick to the buttercream as soon as it's piped on. And we want to have our cinnamon sticks ready as well. Now this part is totally optional, but I love this garnish because I think they just look so cute. Now that we have our cupcakes cooled, our frosting ready, our topping, our cinnamon sticks, we are ready to frost these cupcakes. Once they're frosted, just sprinkle a little bit of the topping right on top. Then you're going to garnish with the little cinnamon stick. These sourdough pumpkin spice cupcakes with cream cheese frosting are such a fun twist for your Thanksgiving table. Plus, you turn sourdough discard into delicious cupcakes. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and leave a comment below. And if you want more sourdough discard recipes just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join me next time in the kitchen.